I'm Frank Garson, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. The USMNT just wrapped up the group stage of the Gold Cup, finishing atop Group D with wins over Trinidad and Tobago, Saudi Arabia, and Haiti. They'll next play Costa Rica in the quarterfinals on Sunday evening. On today's show, we'll break down their performances so far and look ahead to the knockout rounds. Joining me again is Kyle Bond from the Sporting News. So, Kyle, what do you think about what you've seen so far from this U.S. team in the group phase?
Yeah, they've looked good. I think they've performed well. I think they deserve credit for that. I'm not entirely sold yet, but I am happy so far that they have. They've avoided the worst case scenario, right? Which is drop results to really bad teams. So they've taken care of business so far. I still, like I said, am worried about playing better opponents, and I think the way that this bracket shakes out, they're going to be tested. But it's been quality so far. I'm happy with the first team on this squad. The second team has not looked great, but the main starting 11 or 12, 13 guys that Mauricio Pochettino has stuck with have been good.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that a little bit. I agree with you, but I've been hearing a lot more pessimism from other fans, other shows I've listened to. But to me, it's been a very business-like, get out there, get the job done, take care of business, do exactly what you should be doing.
Yes.
And I've been pretty satisfied with them.
I've seen some negativity as well, particularly around a few certain players who I think have performed very well. We can get into that, but I don't get it right now. Like, look, I reserve the right to change my opinion when they play what are likely to be the three best teams in CONCACAF, one after another, the way this bracket is shaken out. But at this point, I've not seen anything to really worry me or frustrate me from those three games. Even the game against Saudi Arabia, I've said this a million times on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to beat this drum because it needs to be heard. When opponents play in a low block, especially like we saw in that game, where no one has any interest in attack. They weren't wanting to counter. They didn't care about getting forward. They didn't care about playing football. They were trying to literally keep the ball out of play as much as possible. It's hard to score. That is the whole point. That is what they were trying to do. They are decently well coached. They have a quality squad for what they were trying to do. So 1-0 doesn't worry me in that situation. Those three games in a vacuum do not given me no reason for pessimism other than maybe the Matt Freese mistake against Haiti. But other than that, there was no point where I was like, "Ooh, yikes."
Yeah, I was really disappointed with that, not just because it was a mistake and not just because it let him back in the game, but because I think if they would have gone through this group stage with 3 clean sheets, I would have had I would have had more of an upbeat tone because they don't do that very often. They have a knack of doing exactly what Matt Freese did, which is making dumb mistakes that lead to goals. And this team hadn't done that up until that point. I would have loved to have seen 3 clean sheets, but I'm with you. Those 3 tough tests that are coming up that you mentioned. We anticipate it's going to be Costa Rica for sure. Then we anticipate Canada in a semifinal and then Mexico in a final, if we were to make it that far. Those will be, a lot stiffer tests.
And I'm rooting for that to happen, by the way. I want the
that'd be
US
awesome.
to play the best possible teams. Like, we've been complaining as much as possible about how they don't have a lot of competitive games against good opponents. So let's play the best opponents we can play.
Yeah, it's good for them as a team to grow. It's good for us as fans because Canada and Mexico, those are matches where when I wake up in the morning and those are about to happen later that evening, I'm it's a different kind of day for me. I'm more excited and more amped, for matches like that. The other one other point I'll just make about this team is, some of the negativity is around, all the players that aren't here and, what can we learn from this team? That's like everyone is saying the B team. But I asked those people to ask themselves, like, that team that they're talking about, this, golden generation or first team, whatever you want to call it, if they were here, do you think they would have done something substantially different in the group stage? Beating Trinidad 5-0, Saudi Arabia 1-0, and Haiti 2-1. Do you think things would have looked a lot different with that team? I don't think so. I think it's negligible the difference you would have seen. So this team, to me, did at least as good as I would have expected, that other team to do.
Yeah, and you look at the rest of the fixtures around the rest of the tournament, like Canada and Mexico had a tough time with some bad teams. Like, international football is hard, right? Like, Mexico beat the Dominican Republic 3-2. They almost had a whole comeback. Costa Rica needed a 103rd minute penalty to beat Suriname. Canada drew 1-1 with Curacao. Like, this stuff happens, right? And you look at the big picture, and the big picture is they won all 3 games pretty comfortably. They never felt like they were in super trouble against Saudi Arabia, except there was one chance where Chris Richards had to make a heroic block. That was pretty much it. The Matt Freese error is the only real problematic moment against Haiti. It was comfortable, and that's what you want.
It was very comfortable. I think that's a good adjective to describe it. And so let's start to look ahead to the knockout rounds. One thing I've been thinking a lot about is, okay, we've had these 2 friendlies, we've had these 3 group stage matches to see different players, in different positions. And now I'm wondering, okay, what does Potch's best starting 11 look like? Who is the 11 he's going to put on the field in the quarterfinals against Costa Rica, and most likely that's going to be, I would say, the 11, going forward. And I think he has 3 big decisions to make, maybe 4. Maybe you might think 4. I personally think 3. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the first one I want to talk about is the left back. Okay, so it's either going to be Max Arfsten or John Tolkin. Arfsten got the first 2 starts. Tolkin got the start against Haiti. Who do you think has won the position between those 2 players going forward?
So I have to maybe defer a little bit to you here because I was not able to watch the Haiti game in full, like with my 100% attention, because I was in Charlotte that day at the Club World Cup game and I was traveling back at that time. So I had it on, but I couldn't really like watch it in full. So I wasn't able to see how John Tolkin played like at a granular level. I haven't seen anything that suggests that he was poor. But I'm not able to fully analyze that. I would say Max played terrible in the first 2 friendlies and pretty good in the first 2 group stage games. So depending on how you analyze Tolkien, I'm willing to kind of defer to you on that, but I would say he'll probably stick with Arfsten just because to me, it seems like that's been the guy that he's gone with in the bigger moments.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Arfsten. I do think it's a close call. I could see him go either way. I don't know. I'd say it's probably about 70% Arfsten, 30% Tolkin. What I'll say about Tolkin is that he looked rusty against Haiti. There was a lot of bad touches. There was a lot of times, a ball came to him and he had a bad touch and went out of bounds. Or I thought going forward he could have done more. And I think he hadn't played in a while before coming into this Gold Cup, so it's perfectly normal to be rusty. But I think maybe it's too late to say, okay, I'm just going to trust him to not be rusty or to get better going forward.
I will also say this on that point, not to excuse that, but I think if there was one overarching criticism I would have of this whole team this summer, it's been that everyone has had awful first touches. First touches have been the biggest weak spot to me for this team on the whole. It's just so sloppy. It's so messy. Guys are having to, if you look at a lot of their best chances in the attacking third, there's a lot of scrambling and last minute creativity because they're having to make up for a bad first touch. So a guy takes an awful first touch and then has to like make up for it and does pretty well. Like Malik Tillman has been one of the best guys at this in the tournament. Is he takes a bad first touch and then is able to recover it and make something out of the moment. And it's been really impressive, but I think everyone has struggled with first touches.
Yeah. Yeah. And one credit I'll give Tolkien is he had the assist to Ajiman, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ball he played up to him. And so you could argue that, the biggest play of the game, he was a very integral part or component of that being successful. And the one thing I don't know is how the coaches will rate him defensively. I mean, I didn't really get a good feel for defense, how he looked like he was lacking on the attacking side to me. I didn't really get a good feel or see enough to really know how he was defensively. I do think Arfson offers more in the attack going forward. But if the coaches want something more defensive, maybe they could lean, towards Tolkien. But I don't know. Poch has kind of shown Arfson seems to be one of his guys, from this group. And so I think he'll get it, but it wouldn't blow my mind, if he stuck Tolkien out there for another run at it. Okay, let's go to next decision, which is the holding midfielder. I think Tyler Adams is going to be out there as long as he's healthy. The question is, who's going to be next to him? Who's going to be that holding midfielder next to him? And the contenders are Sebastian Berhalter, Luca De La Torre, or Johnny Cardoso. Do you have a favorite there?
I would say, so here's my one caveat here, and I'm trying to look it up as I say this, so bear with me, but maybe do yellow cards get wiped before the final, or can you be suspended for the final on yellow cards?
I believe they get wiped after the quarterfinals.
Okay. In that situation, it says at the end of the quarterfinals and shall not carry over to the semifinals. Okay, cool. In that situation, I'm sitting Tyler Adams against Costa Rica. He got a first-minute yellow card against Haiti for a pretty awful tackle. And I need him for the semis and the finals. I don't want that to sound like I'm taking Costa Rica lightly, because I don't think they should. They're a very good opponent, and I could see a world where they lose that game. But I think you bring Adams on off the bench. I'm not risking him from the start, given that there's a good chance they play Canada and Mexico in the last two games. I want Adams for that Canada game. I'm going to sit him for Costa Rica if it were me. I have no idea how Poch is going to play this. I don't really have a good bead on his, is he a guy that's just going to play his 11 and trust his guys, and if they get suspended, he'll figure it out? Or is he somebody that's sort of looking ahead? I don't know. But
so you're saying even though yellow cards reset after the quarterfinals, if he was to pick one up in the quarterfinal, since he already has one, he still would be suspended. Okay.
They reset after the quarterfinals.
Okay.
So if he picks up one in the quarterfinals, then he's going to be suspended for the semis. The whole point is that a guy doesn't miss the final, right? Because that was what we saw with Sebastian Berhalter in the CONCACAF Champions League, where a guy's missing the final for accumulation, which is bogus. But you can miss a semi.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. Let's say Poch decides to go for it, and he says, I'm going to start Tyler Adams anyway. Who would you put next to him?
I would say on merit, it's been De La Torre. And I would like to see Johnny against an opponent like this, but I don't think he works next to Tyler Adams. I don't. I think they're two similar players. And I think you need somebody who is a pure possession guy next to Adams. if you're going to play, I think Adams is best as a lone 6. But if you're going to put somebody next to him, I'm putting De La Torre next to him.
Okay. I think it comes down between Berhalter and De La Torre. I lean more Berhalter, but this one's very, I think, a close call.
I like Berhalter better as a 10. And obviously Tillman's in that spot.
Yeah.
So I think De La Torre is the guy that you need there.
I think Berhalter just has a little bit more nastiness about him, and a little bit more fight than, I don't know, De La Torre. He's kind of disappeared a little bit for me the last couple matches, and Berhalter just looked up for it. He just looked up for it. He was, anytime he could challenge somebody, get in somebody's face, had a chance to push somebody or defend a teammate, he was there. And I think that's what they're going to need against, like, Costa Rica and these other teams going forward. But that one's real close to me. I do think Cardoso, he just hasn't done enough to where, even though he has the pedigree or whatever you call it, playing at the elite level, more elite level, I haven't seen it, and I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt, anymore. Okay, next spot, right wing. Okay, and I think the contenders here are Jack McGlynn, Brendan Aronson, or Quinn Sullivan. Let's see, I think Jack McGlynn got the first 2 starts, and then last night, I think Brendan played on the left, Quinn Sullivan played on the right, but I think Brendan could easily, play on the right. I know you said you weren't able to keep a really close eye on it last night. Did you get enough of a feel? I lean Jack McGlynn here because I just didn't see enough from Aronson or Quinn Sullivan.
It can't be Quinn Sullivan. I don't think he's an international caliber player. I really don't. I'm confused why he's in camp. I am.
Tell us what you really think.
I don't see it before. I haven't seen it since. So
yeah,
it can't be him. Brendan. I continue to struggle with Brendan Aronson, like, not struggle to see why he's here, but struggle to figure out what I think about him. He provides something, but I'm not exactly sure what that is. Like, I know that he's a very good presser. I know he can cross the ball. I know he has energy, but when you, like, those are all statistical things. When you watch him play, I just can't figure out what it is. And with Jack McGlynn, I've seen a lot of people hate on Jack McGlynn. He's one of the 2 guys on this squad that I can't understand why they're getting so much negativity. The other one is Ajamang, and I want to talk about that at some point. We'll talk about that at some point. But with McGlynn, I think the move with the right wing has been, and I think you and I talked about this already, that move was smart. I liked it, and I think it's been really good. I think I really like the off-balance formation, right? When you have a fullback that's attacking and a fullback that's defensive. I like when you have a winger that gets forward and a winger that's more possession-based, more defensive. And McGlynn is that foil to a guy like Diego Luna. And I like the offset nature of it. McGlynn is very good coming back to the ball with his back to goal in midfield. He's decent defensively. He has a killer left foot, as we know. And he combines well with teammates. I like it. I think it's worked. And I just don't see that. They're too symmetrical when you have Aronson and Luna opposite each other.
That's true. Yeah, McGlynn, I thought, played great in the first friendly against Turkey. I thought he played great in that first match against Trinidad. When the U.S. struggled against Saudi Arabia, you didn't see him as much. He kind of disappeared a little bit, and I think that's where some people started like harping on it. But I want to see him on the field. That's the deal. I don't know if right wing is best. I can tell you exactly
why he struggled in that game. It's not. Okay. It's not because of him. It's tactical, and it's because he's a more midfieldery winger.
Yeah,
and the whole Saudi Arabia approach was clog the midfield.
Okay,
so. He wasn't the right guy to contribute in that game, which is why I think he got withdrawn at halftime. I think he got replaced at halftime, if I'm remembering correctly.
I don't think it was halftime. I think it was maybe a little bit 60 minutes or something like that.
Minutes.
Yeah.
Either way, whoever came on was better because they were wider. think it was Aronson. And that was just not a game where he would have been suited for, because he's more of a midfield guy, and he's a midfielder playing on the wing, which is fine. It works, but it wasn't right for that game because Hervé Renard came into it, was like, we're just going to pack the midfield and make them play up the wing, because they were saying their midfielders are better than their wingers, so we're just going to take their midfielders away.
Okay.
And largely it worked. It's just a numbers game, and he got tacticked out of the game. So I'm not putting that on him.
Yeah. Well, in this squad, I think he has too much quality to leave him on the bench. I mean, he's a guy that can score goals from long range. He's great on set pieces. He's great. He's a great passer. I think he needs to be somewhere on the field, and it looks like right wing's the best place for him on this team. So I want to see him. I want to see him there too. The last one, maybe worth mentioning. I don't think this is much of a decision for Poch, but goalkeeper. A lot of people, are upset with Matt Freese's mistake last night, and they're like, throw Turner back in there. I don't see him making a change, but what's your thoughts on Freese versus Turner?
I don't see him making a change because I don't think Poch wants to be seen as a reactionary guy. But I think you make a change. Me personally, go back to Turner. The goalkeeping position is so wide open that, to me, whoever's there, it's theirs until they screw it up. And you can't make that mistake. You can't do it. That is not an acceptable moment. Yeah, he didn't get the cleanest of passes from Tim Ream, but you boot the ball away. You cannot make that mistake. It is an unacceptable mistake. You can explain it away 50 million different ways, right? I'm a goalkeeper. I get it. It's, you're in a position where the mistakes are more glaring because everybody sees them. Yeah, you play this position. That's how it is. You can't make those mistakes. And me personally, it was his job until he lost it. And I haven't seen enough from him. He hasn't had a game where he stood on his head. He hasn't had the game where he's been the guy. And you've gone, wow, okay, we can brush this off as a bad moment. To me, that's, if you're looking at Matt Freese's 3 games at goalkeeper in the group stage, that's the memorable moment. The other 3 games, they weren't really tested at the back very much. He made a couple of good saves, but there was never that game where you're like, wow, Matt Freese is keeping them in this game. And so to me, he hasn't done enough. And some of that's not his fault, right? Some of that is they just they played well defensively and he didn't face a lot of shots. But if that's the case, you shouldn't be screwing up like that. You can't be conceding goals entirely on yourself. And I think you go back to Turner. You say, look, this is a guy who's maybe on his way to Lyon. I haven't seen much on that since the initial reporting, but show me you're the guy again. We gave the other guy a chance. He screwed it up. And you saw that you're not, locked into this position. Now win it back. And I think that would be the right move.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it a little differently. I just think it's too late. I think when Poch made the decision to go with Freese, and now we're 3 games in, Turner's a guy that hasn't got a lot of playing time. He's not in good form. If you were going to go with him, he needed these first 3 matches to kind of get ready for the knockout round. So putting him in there at this point, I feel like he's still going to be rusty. I don't have confidence he won't make a mistake like that. I agree with you. Freese hasn't been tested, so it's tough. We don't really know what we've got with him. But at this point, I just feel like that ship has passed, and you got to roll. You got to roll with Freese. My personal opinion, but we'll see what happens. You said you wanted to talk about Adjiman.
I've seen so much negativity about Adjiman, and I have to say, I've been so impressed by him up front. He is always involved, and to me, that has been what's missing about the striker position for the U.S. national team. The whole time Balogun was up there, Berhalter was complaining about how we don't find him enough. When Pepe's up there, he's a finisher, right? Like, he's been good. But nobody's been as involved to me as Ajamang in many different ways. Back to goal. He's bullying defenders. I mean, when he is one-on-one with a defender, he is bullying them. He's not the fastest guy, but he has wheels, and he's fast enough where he can then use his physicality to beat a guy. If he's the same speed as a defender, he can beat you with his physicality. And he's not, like, to me, speed beats physicality. But he's fast enough not to get beat by speed and then use his physicality as the winning formula. So I love that he bullies defenders. I love how even, we were talking about this with Tillman, Ajamang's the other guy. Even when his first touch sucks, he's able to make something of it. He's really quick thinking. He's able to, like, back heel guys in. He's combining with teammates. He's doing everything that you want from a striker outside of scoring goals. And then he's able to score goals. Before the Gold Cup, he was scoring goals. In January camp. He's got 2 goals in the Gold Cup. One of them was kind of silly, but, like, he's scoring goals and doing all the other stuff to get involved. I do not understand the criticism of him, and I've seen a lot of it on social media. And I think he's been awesome. And I've really enjoyed watching him. Every time they send him the ball, it's fun. Even if he loses it, or even if, the pass is too long, or he can't reach it. He's shoving defenders around. And, like, I don't know, he's fun to watch. And it's to me, it's been impressive.
I agree. It was good to see him get the goal last night because I think it was well deserved.
Yep.
Over the first 3 matches.
He cooked the goalkeeper.
Yeah. My only complaint with him has been his finishing,
Yep.
And but like you said, his involvement, he's always around. He's a handful for people to try and defend. And I thought the goal he got last night was well deserved, and hoping he can carry that forward and have some more confidence.
To me, being involved as a striker tells me that you are making things happen with your teammates. And that's such a good sign because strikers are ultimately measured on goals. But when you're trying to look at a striker in a small sample size, like a knockout tournament, there are other ways to evaluate guys. And I always go back to the moment, and I will never forget this. And I'm sure you may remember this too, but, like, there was a moment that went viral on CBS's Champions League coverage where Thierry Henry was talking about Erling Haaland and why Erling Haaland was going through, like, a dry spell by his standards. And he said, he told the story about when he was at Arsenal and how Arsene Wenger was like, you need to know who has the ball and play to their strengths. Because Henry was like, my teammates aren't getting me the ball. And he's like, you need to get the ball from your teammates. And Henry was like, what are you talking about? And he's like going through all the playmakers, all the different guys that he could have gotten a pass from at Arsenal. And he's like, this guy likes a 1-2. This guy never looks up. You need to be where he thinks you're going to be. This guy can feed you a through ball. And to me, if you're involved in the play that much, you know what your teammates need to do to find you, and you're coming to them. You're providing yourself to them. You're making yourself available. And it's like a wide receiver in the NFL. If a wide receiver isn't getting targets, maybe that's a scheme problem, right? Maybe it's a coaching problem. Maybe it's a quarterback problem. But it's also probably a you not being open problem. and guys complain about not getting the ball. Get open. The quarterbacks will mostly find you. So it's the similar thing. And when a guy's getting involved that much in different ways, that's only a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's going to he's going to keep starting, the rest of this Gold Cup match. I mean, I think he's won that spot for at least this Gold Cup, and Poch seems to be a big believer in him.
May have some breaking news here for you.
Oh wow! I saw your eyes light up.
Yeah, so I just got an ESPN alert. Waiting for the article to pull up, but according to Matteo Moretto of ESPN, Nottingham Forest have agreed to a deal for Timothy Weah.
Whoa. A loan or a permanent move?
It says a permanent move for Weah and Samuel Mbangala for 22 million euros, but the move won't be finalized until they agree to personal terms. So it sounds like the clubs have agreed to a deal. You don't see that often, like two guys in one deal. But it sounds like they still have to agree to a deal with the players, which can be, dicey, but interesting.
Wow, there you go. Breaking news right here on Here and Abroad. I didn't see that one coming. I hadn't heard any rumors about that.
No.
I mean, it's not like super surprising that Way is on the move, but I hadn't heard any rumors, whatsoever. Well, last thing here before we go, let's talk about Costa Rica specifically. We have this quarterfinal match coming up this Sunday evening. When you look ahead to that match, what do you think the keys for the U.S. is going to be, or how do you see that match, playing out with Costa Rica?
Yeah, so two things stand out for me. One, they have to be physical. We talked about that with Ajmang as a positive, but I got to see it from some of the other guys too. Costa Rica are going to play physical, and with that, they can't get frustrated. They cannot get frustrated by Costa Rica. They have to keep their heads about them. You got to match the physicality, but not lose your head. And the other thing is keep your wits about you late, because this Costa Rica team has had a knack for late goals. And if you've got a 1-goal lead like they did against Haiti, or they didn't against Saudi Arabia, got to keep your wits about you. Costa Rica had a 13th minute into stoppage time penalty to beat Suriname in that wacky 4-3 game. And then they got an 85th minute winner against Dominican Republic. So know your opponent. They're going to try and frustrate you. They're going to try and get you booked. They're going to try and get you sent off. They're going to play in a classic CONCACAF fashion, and they're going to lean on their veteran know-how. And, I think to the Real Madrid game that I saw in Charlotte against Pachuca, and Raul Asensio got sent off in the 7th minute for a foul, a last man foul on Solomon Rondon. And all I could think of, it was soft, but all I could think of was Rondon knows exactly what he's doing, right? That guy is so experienced. He's 37 or whatever it is. And Asensio's 22. Got to keep your head. And the opponent is going to do their best to hit you in places where mental toughness is important. So I think that's the key.
Yeah, it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, this is going to be a 1-0 type of game, or 0-0 that goes into extra time. I mean, and so knowing that, I agree with what you say, that they're going to have to be ready for a very physical match to keep their wits about them. But it's going to be so challenging to get a goal. And so they're going to have a couple moments of quality when they they'll probably get, I don't know, 4 or 5 chances the whole match, and they're going to have to demonstrate some quality in those moments to get the goal. I think they can keep Costa Rica off the board. I mean, I know Costa Rica has some good players, but I don't see them being super attack-minded or threatening us a whole bunch. But if we make a mistake like Matt Freese did, or like we made in the past, they're a team that can punish us. So going to have to show some quality to get that one goal that it's likely going to take for a win. And we're going to have to avoid the dumb mistakes.
Got to handle long balls defensively. Got to handle long balls because that's what they're going to do.
Yep. It's going to be a fun one next Sunday evening. And so, let's call it a show. I will make sure and put links in the show notes, Kyle, to your X account. Bless you as you're sneezing there, which is at @the_bonfire, and also to your work at the Sporting News. Thanks again for joining the show, and you're off to Charlotte to watch a Club World Cup game tomorrow.
Yes,
right?
I have 8 Club World Cup games on the horizon. 1 down, 7 to go. So
wow,
we've got 3 more in Charlotte, most likely, and then 4 at MetLife. I'll be up in Jersey for the last 4 games of the tournament.
That sounds fun. Well, enjoy those matches, and thanks again for being on the show. Thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X @FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.